What is happening at JGamer Dude here, and let's talk a little bit about Overwatch. Now, I don't really play Overwatch. I've actually never played Overwatch, pretty much I think in my entire life. The closest that I have come to playing it would be Paladins, and Paladins is free to play, but it's like sort of budget Overwatch at home, so that's kind of like my experience to hero shooters sort of in general. But let me know what you guys like about hero shooters, what your favorite hero shooter is and stuff like that in the comments below. With that being said though, let's talk about how Overwatch 2 is going to be giving up the ghost and actually giving players heroes without, causing them to pay money or do stuff like that. So, if you guys didn't already know, Overwatch, incredibly popular first-person shooter, so PvP competitive title made by Blizzard. It's a very different game, especially when it released in 2016, the original Overwatch. It was quite different from what they were normally used to do. So stuff like World of Warcraft, Starcraft, these were all kind of like either strategy games, MMORPGs, games of that ilk, and along those lines. Now, with it being a competitive first-person shooter, it is online only, and it also pioneered the use of loot boxes. So, what Overwatch does is, compared to its contemporaries at the time at least, it gave you all of the characters up front to be like, here's all the characters, here's a practice range to practice using each character, their abilities, how they shoot, and everything else in between. And then, every time you level up, you'd get a loot box, and those loot boxes would contain cosmetics. So everything in terms of paying within Overwatch, the original Overwatch that released in 2016 was just pure skill in terms of its gameplay and the whole sort of PvP nature to this game, but also the fact that everything that you earn in terms of loot boxes, rewards for leveling up and everything else in between, that was all cosmetic. So there was no real gameplay changing aspects to it whatsoever. And back in 2016, that would have been seen as a cardinal sin ultimately. And it did actually win Game of the Year at the Game Awards in 2016. Though back in the day, I didn't really understand the hype all that much, but it was just a game that was made by Blizzard. And that was kind of the extent of like my knowledge to it at that point. After watching some reviews, some gameplay videos, streams and things like that, I kind of then began to understand, okay, I can kind of see why it looks neat, but for someone like me who likes going for trophies, an online-only game, that's not something that I would be vibing with all that much. So for Overwatch 2 to completely stop the use of giving out heroes for free and paywalling them through a battle pass of all things was a very questionable thing, because the game exists in its design to effectively allow you access to all characters. So the fact that this happened at all was quite questionable. Like it really got me scratching my head. Yeah, so I mean this phrase right here kind of sums it up pretty well. Game director admits not all attempts to balance the paywall competitive advantage worked. You don't say, when that's really what the game has always been about. That really does kind of, again, make me scratch my head quite a bit. And they got rid of loot boxes for Overwatch 2, sure enough, but then they replaced it with things that were so much worse. All of the skins cost a lot more. The fact that everything was hidden behind the battle pass. The battle pass price was increased even further. It feels like the only change that was made from Overwatch to Overwatch 2 was the amount of monetization that went into the game. Also the reason why people wanted Overwatch 2 was for those PvE missions, which never ended up happening. There are no PvE missions as a whole. Yes, you could argue that there is some for some of the seasons that have happened in the game itself, but that's not what the people wanted. What people wanted was a PvE campaign, and that was never given, that was never provided. And that is really, really, like, it really sucks. And I can understand why people are walking away from Overwatch as a whole, because again, they did not meet the promises that they made. They are actively choosing to screw people over, and I do actually have a video in the works about another game series franchise studio that's kind of doing a very similar thing, but I thought let's base it out with this particular video, to be completely honest. And this is another thing. This is what kind of sucks the most, that Overwatch 2 went free to play. It going free to play made it feel like, okay, the game can get away with a lot more. But even if that is the case, what Overwatch tried to do with its cosmetics, like for example, skins being sold at $20 to $25 to $30 each, is absolutely insane. The new Cowboy Bebop, what was it called? Collaboration that they were doing at the moment. I don't know if it's still going or if it's finished by now, but that was also a slap in the face to people who like Cowboy Bebop, like myself, but I would never touch Overwatch at all. It just seems like this game could quite easily fall under irrelevancy quite easily. And also, this whole idea of Overwatch having its characters behind the battle pass only lasted for a year and a half, which is how long Overwatch 2 has been out for. And the fact that, like, Overwatch 2, so there are 3 different types of characters from what I understand. There are attackers, tanks, healers. Obviously DPS, tank, and healers. DPS obviously are there to deal damage, tanks are there to tank damage, create shields and do things like that, and healers exist to heal. One of the more recent updates to the game, I don't know if it was actually ever implemented, but it definitely caused an uproar within the community, was the idea that characters can now self-heal, making healers feel completely mute. The change between Overwatch's 6v6 to Overwatch 2's 5v5, that's probably the only even remotely notable change that really felt like it could make a difference. But the thing is that they could have just added that as a mode to Overwatch 1, and Overwatch 2 still has no reason to exist. Calling Overwatch 2 let me rephrase that. Calling Overwatch 2 as Overwatch 1.5 instead kind of does Overwatch 1, I feel like, a disservice. And that it should have been more like an Overwatch 0.9 instead. But that's just me from how I see things. What the community's been talking about, this news that keeps constantly coming out that has never gotten anything positive to say about the game. In fact, it's actively quite negative for the most part. So I am curious to hear what other Overwatch players I should say, have to say about this. You know, how do they feel about the game? What are their thoughts, feelings about the changes being made? Is it actually beneficial? Should someone like me who's been looking to get into the game now get into the game, because free to play is like a cheap enough price for me to get in, but the achievements in the game are so online focused and annoyingly difficult to do that I don't want my account to get banned if it looks like I'm trying to earn achievo sort of here and there in ranked matches and things like that, even though I'm probably hurting myself more than helping. I don't know. It's just weird, to say the least, and unfortunate for Blizzard. But then again, Blizzard has been on a downward spiral since 2018 anyways, so I feel like that's kind of where it all really sort of started to fall apart. Blizzard was always known as the company that could never do wrong, and yet here they are, only ever doing wrong. That's just how I see it, but let me know what you guys think about that in the comments below. Anything and everything that I've talked about in this video, please like the video, subscribe to the channel. I'm hoping for my videos to go out to more people. Hopefully more Overwatch fans will actually, see this video, comment on the things that I've said, and maybe correct me a little bit on the history of Overwatch a little bit there, because that was pretty much a little sort of very summarized version of events in regards to, the releases and, the Game Awards stuff and all of that. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see if I got anything wrong there. With all that said and done though, I do upload every day, so I'll see you guys tomorrow.